Yeah. The death of Queen Elizabeth II has sent shockwaves around the world, with not only stories of a long and remarkable reign as Queen dominating the headlines, but also how the monarchy will now look moving forward. However, it seems in American media, more focus is on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle than on the Queen, with the couple undoubtedly drawing both positive and negative attention since moving stateside and their withdrawal from the royal family. With that being said, we need to ask, is the royal family still seen as a staple in history in America, or simply another famous family that the gossip magazines love to thrive on? Joining us from Paris, Texas is once again, as she does every fortnight, our US correspondent, Katie Dixon. Welcome back, Katie.
Thanks, Michael. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Now, has America received the death of Queen Elizabeth and the reaction like what you would have expected from countries like Australia, which is a constitutional monarchy?
Look, I think it's a little different over here. Certainly for me, when we got word that she was ill, I walked into the office and I was like, "This could be it," and then when we got the news that she passed, I certainly felt different to what others in the office felt, and it kind of led to the conversation of, you know, they don't know. I've met people that don't know that, the Queen was also the Queen of Australia, and things like that. We've obviously had a lot of, Biden has come out and said his apologies and things like that. But in terms of the Queen passing herself, that hasn't really dominated the headlines, like you said, like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry did. So I think it's just different over here just because she's not a staple for the American people, whereas back home, she certainly is.
The media, the American media especially, definitely seems to be more focused on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle than on celebrating the Queen's extraordinary life. Why do you think that's the case? Is it basically just the gossip magazines that drive this?
Look, I think they definitely do focus a lot of their attention on this, but we're seeing even larger networks over here daily post different things. And, all I'm seeing is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Obviously, I follow news sites back home and things like that. And I follow that side of it and the funeral that's taking place and the procession and everything. But over here, it's talking about, Meghan Markle and Kate and how they're interacting, and then how she spoke to an aide, and then what's this little device under her dress. And it just seems to be one thing after the other. And interestingly enough, it seems to have shifted to more of a negative towards Meghan Markle over here, which is interesting because, a year or two ago, everybody was all for her over here. And I think it's just the celebrity culture, the obsession with famous people over here. And that's what's dominating the headlines right now.
Do you think this raises a question of what history is taught in American schools and whether American people think that history of the royal family is important?
It definitely does. And there is not a lot of world history taught in social studies over here. The focus isn't even on that when it comes to talking about social studies. There is a big debate that's been going on for many years over here, and that's about talking about how we teach American history. So they're really not even thinking about that. But I think a lot of people believe that history is important. And by the time they get to teaching that in schools, it's an elective at that point. So a lot of kids are missing out. And it seems that the older generation, even I'm in my mid 30s, and even, 30s, 40s seem to know a lot more about the royal family, about European history and things like that than the younger generation. They just seem to know about Meghan Markle and that she married a prince. And, that is a dream, I guess. Little girls grow up wanting to marry a prince. And I can definitely understand that. But there is definitely a gap in teaching history, and not just British history, but European history and things like that too. And interestingly enough, I think that a lot of people have learned a little bit of that from TV shows like The Crown on Netflix. There's a lot of different TV series now, and whether they depict actually what happened, they're at least learning something, but definitely we could be learning more in school over here when it comes to those social studies. And if we're not teaching that now, a lot of people ask the question, well, this next generation, is it just lost history at that point? Is it just the few people that want to study it? And so that's definitely a question, but they're more focused in the schools over here about how American history is taught. And if we focus on the race debate, and if we put more emphasis on race, or not as much emphasis, that's the big debate over here right now.
I definitely found when I lived in America a while ago that there seemed to be two outward looking states. So each side of the coast, New York and California, both looked outwards. But everything else in America was very insular. It was, people weren't even aware of where Australia was. They thought I was English with my beautifully well-spoken accent. I was mistaken. So they knew a lot about England, but not a lot about Australia.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just hilarious sometimes the questions I've had. Talking about even Kate and Prince William. I had someone turn around and go, Kate Hudson. So it's like whoa. But for me, growing up in Australia, I didn't move here until I was in my 20s. So obviously, so it is shocking to me. But on the flip side, when I was going through my citizenship, and you have to know the history, and I got little cards with 100 questions on them, and I had every answer memorized before I went and took that test. I took those cards to work, and not a lot of Americans even know their own history. So I think that's definitely a gap in the system over here. And I think they're focused on more race and things like that, when we just need to teach the history.
You mentioned now that the media narrative seems to be a lot more negative towards Meghan. We've also seen here in Australia some of the Republican movements making their opinions be known now and being berated for it too soon, be respectful. But we've just seen a recent Roy Morgan Gallup poll come out and said that 60% of Australians are in favour of retaining the monarchy. Do you think this is just a matter of, people have come to the realisation, gee, the old dear, she worked pretty hard and she did a lot of good in her own right?
I think that Queen Elizabeth is she, everyone just loved her. I've she and this is what I've been, when I've had the conversation over here, she upheld tradition. She never wavered on that. Didn't matter how society changed. And I think that we might start seeing a little bit of a shift now that King Charles has stepped in, and then obviously Prince William will move up. But when people say, "Is she really your queen or whatnot?" and they're like, "Well, why don't you just become your own country?" And in essence, in my opinion, she doesn't mess with us. They're back up. That's where we came from. She's not controlling of us. We run our own country. So I haven't seen those polls. I'm not sure how it is back home. I haven't been home in a few years, but that would definitely be. If you ask someone over here, they really question, why are you still part of it? But then they don't even know that Canada is either. So
yeah, and that's what I say to people. Whether you support or believe in the institution, you've got to admire the dedication and the service that this woman has given in a role that she was born into, because no matter how well gilded the cage is, it's still a cage.
and a role that was never supposed to be hers or her father's, for that matter. Obviously her uncle, he was supposed to be the king, not her father. So she really took this on, and I think we're very lucky to live in a time where we did get to see Queen Elizabeth reign. And like I've said to a lot of people over here, even the younger generation, even people that have kids, toddlers, teenagers, whatever, we're very lucky in a way. We get to see the coronation of a king. We'll probably see another one too when Prince William steps up. There was a whole generation that was born and has now passed that never saw the change of that crown, because Queen Elizabeth, ruled for so long. So it's so sad that she's passed now, but I think her legacy will live forever, and we'll always know of Queen Elizabeth. But I think it's a special time for everybody as well.
Yeah, I agree, Katie. All right, Katie Dixon, all the way from Paris, Texas. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Michael.